Fantastic. So let's get started. My name is Conrad. I'm the co-founder of FintruX Network, and I'm here today to kind of just speak to everybody and kind of elaborate a bit more about our latest product, TruX, and talk about how we got here, what's been happening, where we plan to go from here, and hopefully this can be a regular thing we do with our supporters as often as possible, so that you guys are just as in touch as we are with the product and how it's progressing. You'll notice that beside me, you have someone that you've never met before. This is Amaran. He's our VP of Business Development. He's quite key in our expansion into the Asia region. And I'll let him introduce a bit of himself and how he ended up joining us.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Conrad. So a bit about myself. So I actually, personal thing, I actually moved over to Singapore in October last year. And my career background has been predominantly within credit risk management based in Australia. My career is sort of spread across within banking, finance, B2B commercial, business to consumers, and obviously through to online digital media. It was always one of those things where for me, it was quite interesting when I moved to Singapore because I never heard about P2P lendings and so forth until I started researching into it, because it's been such a big thing in Asia, especially, and being Singapore a hub for financial services, it was quite interesting to actually look into it. And that's when I actually met Nelson and Conrad to have a chat about obviously FintruX and what they were doing. And it was interesting to see how they tapped into my passion ultimately. So they've tapped into my credit risk management side of things. And it was amazing to see obviously Conrad's and Nelson's vision about implementing AI into credit adjudication, and obviously being able to run something through a blockchain platform such as FintruX, which our new product, which is TruX. It's been a great journey. I started about a few weeks ago now, and we've hit the ground running with a lot of things. Even though my role within the business of being the VP side of things, but it's also looking at building the business through business development, through the operational side of things as well, because I've had that exposure in my career with looking after teams in Australia, as well as obviously part of Asia's as well. So it's been a great, thank you for taking me on board as well, Conrad. It's an exciting journey, and I think FintruX has a lot to offer in the future, and it will be one of those things where we'll definitely be pioneering the world globally as well, because our products is obviously not going to be purely only based for Singaporeans. It's going to be based for Asia as well as throughout the globe as well. So we're hoping to obviously evolutionize the way we are doing lending, and obviously through business solutions, helping with liquidity issues, especially with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, well, thank you, Amaran, for sharing your story. And definitely we're honored to have someone of your great expertise and long-standing history of working in the finance and banking sectors, and especially in credit risk, and helping us with promoting and pushing out what FintruX is now doing today. So, as many of you guys know, it's been quite a journey to get to where we are. We had a lot of developments in terms of how we wanted to push our vision of supporting entrepreneurs through liquidity issues and cash flow issues that they inevitably occur over time. And, for people who follow us pretty regularly, we came out with a new product called TruX that, we established around, officially talked about almost around a month ago. And it might seem a bit foreign to a lot of people who don't understand the background of how it all came about, and the need and the market need that we're fitting in with this product. So I kind of want to spend the next 15 to 20 minutes trying to give a layman's, pitch to what we're doing and explain as much as possible and in detail as possible how TruX is going to benefit the entrepreneurs of tomorrow and today. So let me get into it a bit, and
Sure.
Hopefully Amaran can help me with it as well.
This is my first AMA, so just letting you know. So a bit nervous myself, but it will be okay.
Yeah, no, everyone's our friends, and we just want to make sure that we all understand what we're doing moving forward, and how really how revolutionary our idea is, and it really is, guys. It really is. So why do people want funding? Why do businesses need funding in the first place, right? That's ultimately the first question we ask as a lending company. How do we come into the space and tackle the needs of entrepreneurs and small business owners that have a need for cash? Well, they need the cash, let's say around $50,000, to then inevitably pay back their vendors, right? Whether they've accrued a debt for any goods or any services, let's say software in this case, they're only getting the $50,000 to pay back their vendor. Now, getting that $50,000 is not easy, right? As a small business, you have options. You can go to a bank, but the bank isn't likely to accept your, $50,000 loan, as it's not efficient for them to take on that kind of risk. Whereas they can do $1 million loan and have a much better return, have much better financials on a bigger company, et cetera, et cetera. So they're not really motivated in doing a small loan like yours. And on top of that, they rather see that you have cash to lend you more cash. And now, as a SME owner, that defeats the purpose. Why do I want more cash if I already have cash in my bank account? So then inevitably, these small business owners move to the next option, which are private lenders, who are, the money lenders you see on the streets, or perhaps peer-to-peer lenders are the new advent of lending. However, there's still a problem there because, it can range from 15% interest per annum to 35% interest per annum. And that's just too expensive for these business owners to incur, especially if they're trying to build a sustainable business. And they only need this money for a short-term cash flow need. Now, we get to the final problem, which is credit risk, right? And this is something that Amaran knows very well, where as a small business, if you don't have enough financials, not enough payment history, etc., there's really no way for them to kind of get the reputable credit that they need to prove to third-party investors to say, hey, trust me, I'm good for this money. All I need is the cash currency to prove it. Back me up on this, and I'll pay for the services I need to pay for. So with all these problems in mind, it comes down to one question. As an entrepreneur today, and I'm making a steady income, I'm making a steady flow of revenue coming in from my service, I have service providers that I have to pay up. I either take my entire sum and pay up my service providers and not be able to invest that money into growing a better business, right? Or I grow my money to building a better business and not pay my service providers on time. Now, obviously, the latter is a very risky move, because if you don't pay back your vendors and their services are critical to your business to sustain itself, that's going to be a very hard way for you to move forward once you've broken that trust with your vendor and you can't provide the services that you need to move forward with your business, because they're not surviving you with the waterfall effect. And if you go with the former, not growing your business, then you're just stuck there at the same level, never growing. And even the worst case is not even having enough money to pay back your vendor in the first place, because you're a seasonal business and you get cash upon cyclical cycles, and money is coming, but you just can't get the fiat currency to pay up a loan, pay up that debt in time. So noting that is the issue, and noting that fiat lending in itself has many reputational barriers, many jurisdictional barriers, many everything you can think of in terms of regulatory red tape, it's there as you start dealing with fiat currencies and also with consumer investors. So we decided, it says, hey, how do we cut away that complex piece? How can we do lending without third-party investors at all? And that's how we envision TruX, right? Because as I mentioned in my example, the entrepreneurs only want money to pay back existing debts, existing vendors. If that's the reason that they need to get this money, why don't we just isolate the problem to be strictly between the vendor and the client, so the borrower, who's already had a common connection, and they just need someone to put some structure into the deal, put some trust into the whole ecosystem. And that's why we came up with TruX, right? It's trust as business financing on a reputational based level.
And I think that's also an important thing as well with businesses. It's important to have that trust issue with your vendors in particular, because you want to be able to have a continuing business ultimately, to be able to continuously serve in your own market, and obviously having somebody to believe in you as well. So what we'll do, we'll be divulging more into the TruX side of the platform as to how we can obviously help that business shortly.
Yeah, so if I could like just give you guys a quick rundown of how TruX works, and obviously I'll take more questions later on how, if there's further detailed questions you might have. But at the first stage, the borrower recognizes a need. They say that, hey, I can't pay back my vendor on time, whether or not I have other business expenditures, whether or not I just have a low income month, for a low revenue month, right? There's a need for me. And I don't want to break the trust of my vendor by just not paying him back after a month or 2 months. Now, the thought process is, if you've had a client and if you're a vendor and you've had a client for 10 years or more, if they don't pay up 1 month, that's fine with you because you already have the trust that he's a paying customer over 10 years of data, right? Personal data. If you don't pay back for 3 months to 6 months, then maybe there's a little bit of an issue. But as long as you guys can negotiate a reasonable interest rate, you guys can move on with your lives. He wants to maintain him as a customer, and he wants to maintain you as a vendor, and he wants to pay up. It's just that he can't at the moment. So what we want to do is we want to impact that 10-year, 15-year long client relationship, the trust that's built up, and also still build that for a client that's just 1 or 2 years. Because if you've had a client for 1 or 2 years and they say that, hey, I can't pay up this month, I'm sorry, then you're just not going to take them as a client. Many times, that's, a loss that you're just going to write off, that you don't want to ever deal with again. But we want to be there to instill the trust there. So the borrower comes to us and says, hey, I have this need. I can't pay back this. So we will take him in and we'll credit adjudicate him with our team of credit analysts and also with our partners who are very well established in doing credit adjudication, especially here in the Asian space, as well as our partners in the US and Canada and so on and so forth. For reference, our partners in Singapore is DP Info of the Experian Credit Group. So we match our internal scores with the external scores as well, so that we have a comprehensive and holistic view of the creditworthiness of this borrower. And we establish for him a trust profile. Now, for this profile, you can kind of think of it as kind of like, TripAdvisor, right? TripAdvisor kind of, profile, where previously, if I was a consumer, I wanted to go to a nice place to have dinner, I wouldn't have any verifiable form of proof that this place is better than the other place, other than perhaps a booklet that said, best places to eat in Singapore. But now there's an online portal where you can leave reviews, can leave recent pictures, you can check in, you can show that there's really a restaurant there and people want to go there to eat. So in the same case, we're providing a trust profile that's proving to any creditors, anybody who the borrower owes money to, that says, hey, this guy is creditworthy by any other standard. Here are his financials. This is EBITDA, right? This is, he hasn't had any defaults for the last 6 months. All the information that the creditor needs to trust that the borrower can take a deferred payment, and in time they will be paid their due. Now, that's just the first stage, right? Establishing trust is the first stage, but we also want something to back that up, right? Some kind of collateral or representation of the borrowing credit, so to speak, that the lender, right, the creditor needs to hold on to. So in this case, we can provide the borrower with a way to then issue their own digital tokens, which is a credit representation of their borrowing power. So with this credit representation, let's say we've adjudicated this borrower to have a $50,000 credit limit. We will say, hey, you have this threshold of borrowing that you should be accountable for. And instead of waiting for a bank or financial institution, a P2P lender to give you the fiat backing, which they won't anyway, as explained earlier, we'll give you the option to essentially generate your own credit, right, where nobody has given it to you before. Now, with these credit tokens, they can now send these to their vendors and say, hey, this is the representative of what I can owe. And if you hold these are interest accruing, and we can negotiate on the terms and the interest. So in this way, the borrower is actually having the power. The one thing that's always inspired me about blockchain, Amaran, is that, it gives the power back to the people. We're enabling individuals to finally have the power to make control of their own decisions.
Exactly.
Instead of relying on the bank to give an interest rate to you, or a P2P lender to give an interest rate to you, why not set it yourself and negotiate between your vendor on what's right? Because what the vendor wants at the end of the day is for you to pay him back. And what you want at the end of the day is low interest rates and flexible payment terms. So going back to the credit token analogy, right? The credit token is now given to the vendor. Vendor is earning interest as pre-approved with the borrower in the same token currency. And what happens is that they can actually choose to exchange for cash anytime they want within 30 days. So this gives the borrower a 30-day leeway to cash out any amounts of the real fiat backing that they want. And it becomes a way of cash flow management for the borrower to essentially manage the expectations of the vendor that says, hey, I'm good for the money I owe you. I'm going to pay back at some point. If you want to cash out any amount, let's do so. But know that you'll be earning less interest because you'll be cashing out more of the principal out, and I'll be paying you less interest over time. If you're okay with that, then it's okay. So in our testing, in our initial market research, we found that there's usually two main types of lenders, or creditors, vendors, whatever you want to call them in this case. The one type is that they have 9 out of 10 paying customers, and they have one customer that, it's not really paying, it's a slow paying customer, but they still want to maintain it because it's ultimately more cash in their pocket, and they don't mind earning more interest on that customer because again, they already get enough cash from the other paying clients. So in this case, they're happy to hold on to the credit tokens, let it accumulate, earn compounding interest over time, and then when they do want to cash out perhaps small amounts at a time, they can approach the borrower and cash out the fiat currency. Now there's the second type, right? The type that says, hey, this guy's been owing me money for years. I just want my initial money back. Come on, let me get on with my life. So under our model, there's finally a way for the vendor to actually punish the borrower for not paying up on an invoice. Currently, if you don't pay up an invoice, the most you can do is sue them, right? Because there's not really anything you can do in terms of making sure that their credit and reputation is damaged, which is something that you want to do if they haven't paid up their dues. So in this situation, because now we've legitimized the process, it's true financing, they're able to actually affect the credit of the borrower if the borrower doesn't pay up. And in that sense, the borrower is more worried about this, and this will be one of the main things that he will try to pay up over time. Mm-hmm. So in this case, perhaps the creditor, the vendor can say, I want to pay back in 3 installments over the next 3 months. One is going to be $10,000, next is going to be $20,000, last is $20,000. Then it's $50,000 altogether. So that's kind of the understanding that we're trying to build here. We're trying to build a trust relationship between the borrower and the vendor, so that there are no more, broken hearts and broken trust, broken relationships of an otherwise very good customer-vendor relationship. Because at the end of the day, these companies just want to build more about themselves. Get more revenue. Yeah. And rejecting customers that are non-paying is not necessarily the way to move forward from there.
That's true.
So maybe you can elaborate a bit. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting as well, because the way we are we're actually revolutionizing the way credit risk management is going to be in the future. Because the fact that, as Conrad was mentioning, you can obviously as a vendor go and, provide bad credit rating and default list your suppliers and so forth, or your customer. But it's more about saying, okay, we understand that you're currently going through this situation. Come on this platform, be able to negotiate what we in credit risk time would say, negotiate on a realistic arrangement. Something that that you'll be able to afford to repay back. And then obviously that's where that negotiation will happen. We can facilitate the negotiation on our platform to be able to sort of say, okay, yep, this is what I can pay and so forth. Again, as I said, it's building that immutable trust between the two businesses. Because if businesses start dying out, that actually inadvertently has a big effect on our global economy. And what we want to do is try and make sure maintain the economy and maintain the economy growth.
Yeah, and a lot of governments are very interested in this product, especially because we're able to now target a market segment that wasn't targeted before. SMEs are historically the worst underserved market in the world, right? Yeah. Anybody has a chance to will skip over the SME market to target a greater market, a bigger market that's more profitable for them, right? Yeah. But at the expense of not helping entrepreneurs build a better business, build better solutions, more innovative solutions that otherwise they need a VC support to get out to. So at the end of the day, that's what FintruX has built into. Like, we're a team of entrepreneurs that want to build entrepreneurial solutions, right? We want to make sure that any other entrepreneurs feel the same struggles that we felt when we were trying to build a business, that we were trying to get from 0 to 100. And we want to be the one-stop resource for anybody aspiring to build a business and help them grow it from small, medium to large. Now, I see a question coming in from Arun that was asking us about the traditional business financing, or the traditional business of securitization, the bulk financing model we had in Canada, which was under the our Canadian company called Global Porter Corporation. We're a software provider that has 20 years of experience servicing the financial markets, manufacturing, any kind of industry that needed databases, because we specialized in database development. And over time, we had accumulated a very healthy client base of around 90% and up of the securitization market, which is bulk financing. And these systems, and mind you, are mission critical. Banks and insurance companies, they rely on these systems to run their core securitization business, which is essentially bulk tranches of loans, right? Maybe you want to explain what securitization is?
I'm happy you can
Sure, no problem. So essentially, it's just bulk tranches of loans that the banks are trading between one another, where they've already accumulated a whole grade of loans. Let's say this is AA, let's say this is A, this is B, whatever. They use the S&P ratings, and they're essentially trading these across their different platforms and trying to leverage on the gain and losses. So in our experience there, what we found was that, yes, this is a very good business, it's a very lucrative business, but we saturated the market already. And it's not exactly, we saw a lot of the benefits that securitization does for these banks and insurance companies. Because they're such loan sizes of such big amounts, they're able to do something called cross-collateralization, which is a form of credit enhancements. And essentially what credit enhancements are is any way that you can lower the risk of any certain portfolio. And in this case, in the securitization model, because there's such big loans and all across the same class, the same risk level, so to speak, if one defaulted within that portfolio of loans, they're able to cross-collateralize it and help, make the rest of the loans help cover the losses of one loan. And obviously other things that they add on to that, other secret sauces of securitization. So we saw all of that and we said, hey, how can we apply this to a more grassroots level? How do we apply it to help the people of today, the small businesses, the ones that are trying to get a loan of a moderate amount, again, $50,000, $100,000, instead of these big $1 million, $5 million of loans, which end up bulking together for us to manage $4 billion of loans. So that was the thought process that led to the birth of FintruX, right? We had initially thought that the model would be a fiat lending with a blockchain kind of base layer, and full automation on entirely the processes, right? Making sure the loan contract is a smart contract, making sure that everything that could be automated was automated, and essentially the only piece that would be manual was collections. And with the whole focus on it being like traditional lending is inefficient. It's very manual. No matter how many lenders tell you that, hey, we have an automated process, you can get approved in 5 minutes, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, they're still doing manual checks on you, and nothing is as smart as it seems.
And I'll just add on to that one as well, Conrad, as well, because, and that's the funny thing as well, because when we're in this era of automation, and as Conrad was mentioning, they can say we can get it done within a few seconds, but ultimately you actually still need that human resources side of things, because businesses have different financial statements. Businesses have different sort of ways of modeling their own business structures. And even if you were to be presenting like a credit analyst, for example, like a statement of financial position, they can simply look at the numbers, but at the end of the day, you need to also understand there's more behind the numbers, and being able to say, okay, let's forecast exactly what this company is looking at earning in revenue wise, and what can we actually back that up with loan, and are they actually going to be helping their own business grow, and is mitigating any risk associated with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And but as time went on, and I'm giving a little background on how the whole evolution of TruX came about, right? We first deployed our two loans. We did two fiat loans, one in April and then one I believe was in June.
Yeah.
And I actually have the statistics on that here. The first loan was for $375,000 at around 12% interest rate. Currently, it's still paying off very well. Pay to date is around $40,000. So we've already recouped a good 10% of that just in the interest payments. The next loan we tried out was when we tried to say, hey, other than just unsecured lending, how can we, branch off into more secured lending as well, maybe play around with some convertible options. So we tried a convertible loan for $500,000 at around 12.8 interest rate again, and the interest amount was paid to date is around $20,000 as well. So everything is going very well. We were testing our model, we're testing our smart contracts, testing the whole process of automating the loan, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like what we found out was that we run into barriers, especially as you start touching into fiat currencies. And that's only part of the problem, right? When we start touching the fiat currencies, if the answer to the regulators, they want to know, hey, are you protecting the clients? Are you protecting the customers? And we say, of course, yes. That's the whole point of our system, is so that we can make everything transparent. Nobody's getting cheated. We're not taking a huge cut of everything, making sure that everybody is understanding what's happening, right? If the loan contract is on a smart contract on a blockchain, how much more transparent can you get? Yeah. But it takes a lot of teaching for the regulators to understand what we do, and quite honestly, that took up a lot of our time, especially leading into Q3 and Q4 of last year. We had legal teams helping us from Canada, from the US, from Singapore, all working very hard to see how we can make this into a reality. And at the end of the day, there was just a lot of red tape that we had to cross through, and pushing that model through was going to take more effort and more cost than we originally anticipated. So that's when we kind of wanted to switch gears. Another thing that really pushed us to make a change was also the differences or the difficulties of operating a two-sided market. And anybody who's ever operated a platform can tell you this, right? Uber, Airbnb, they burn billions of dollars every year. I think Uber just said they burned like $3 billion in a quarter.
Yeah,
insane, right? And I'm not sure about you guys, but I don't have $3 billion in my pocket to burn, right?
I'd retire if I had $3 billion.
Well, but the thing is, because you're always trying to balance a market need, you're trying to balance, a number of borrowers with a number of investors. If you have a lot of borrowers but no investors in your platform, the borrowers will leave. If you have a lot of investors but no borrowers, then investors will put their money into something else. So at the end of the day, operating this two-sided market is very, very difficult, and it's not exactly a profitable business model. Look at Amazon, famously unprofitable, right? Mm-hmm. And the business that we want to build is something that's sustainable and lasts through even a recession. Something that we're very proud of, our claim to fame, so to speak, right, is that none of our securitization clients in Canada lost any money in the 2008 financial crisis. That's how robust our systems are. That's how robust our processes are. And we're looking forward to keep building systems and solutions that are just as robust as the previous. So we started to brainstorm and says, how can we simplify the model? How can we help and remain true to our vision of helping the entrepreneurs solve liquidity issues on a day-to-day need, right? And on a flexible term rates, on easy interests. Yep. At the end of the day, TruX is what came out of it, and I've explained what it was, but it's really important that we all understand that this is truly the best way forward. It's the next evolution in lending. So I would even be so far to call it as the next evolution of peer-to-peer. Yeah. This is true peer-to-peer, right? True peer-to-peer. We're directly letting the borrowers interact with their vendors, who are their investors in this case, or the lenders, right? And they already have an established relationship together, and they already trust each other. They just need a push. They need a reputation layer that makes them say, hey, this is what's happening here, and this is how we can avoid being at odds from each other in terms of trying to understand this financing deal we're getting into. Mm-hmm. And we also saw in our market research a lot of issues with peer-to-peer lending, and obviously I don't want to disclose too many names, but I've already expressed a lot of my dissatisfaction with traditional P2P lending in many of my blogs before. But you kind of just reiterate and also add new information. The current peer-to-peer lenders are not strictly peer-to-peer.
No.
They operate more like a rogue bank. They pool deposits together. They do very haphazard credit adjudication on borrowers, and then they deploy funds. Now, the problem is because people are flooding into the peer-to-peer market, there's a lot of investments that keep coming in. And that gives the companies the opportunity to hide losses, to say, hey, this borrower is not actually that creditworthy, but since it's not my money that I'm investing, I'll give them whatever credit rating, and I'll let the poor suckers that do the investments go in and invest into a bad loan. And inevitably, when that loan fails, there's either two things that happen.
Yeah.
One thing is the better case, I'll call it, but it's still never going to sustain itself. It's where companies, peer-to-peer companies that have a lot of investments, that have a lot of VC funding, they use that VC funding to then pay off the loan to the investors, even though the loan has defaulted from the borrower side. They then negotiate with the borrower to say, hey, let's make this a revolving loan, let's make a new loan, and let's tell everybody on the platform is a new borrower and the new loan, and essentially pawn off new investors who had no idea that this borrower has defaulted before. And on their records, on their books, it's not default, it's a revolving credit, right? And then it becomes a situation where they're boasting ridiculous default rates of 0.5% or 1%, very low, right? But it's not actually true, because they're just turning the defaulted loans that should have defaulted into revolving credit and not telling their investors about it beforehand. And now when new investors put in money, they now have the money to pay back their VC because there's new money in the system. And as you can tell, that's not sustainable. That's not a legitimate business model. That's not something that will definitely stand the test of time, especially when the recession is approaching. We're all seeing the market. The bear market is here. It's not something that I want to be involved in personally.
Of course, definitely.
Right?
And I would like to add upon that as well. And it's interesting as well. Like, you may have, obviously, if you've seen some of the news reports across Asia, like, in China, there's been massive crackdowns on peer-to-peer lending companies, because I think it's interesting how like business people would obviously look into creating peer-to-peer lending, and like they would go towards a more fraudulent way where they would get the VC capital and just sort of give out dodgy loans. And that's interesting how you were mentioning, Conrad, when you thought about the FintruX business itself and tested out the different models, which was a great initiative because it mitigated the risk for us ourselves. Because we are actually here to build that trust, even with our customers, borrowers, lenders, and obviously like our viewers and followers as well. It's about saying, hey, we can trust you. And adding upon the credit adjudication side of things of our profile, we obviously will look into the credit risk side of things and make sure that even though we're facilitating, but we have the best interest for both parties at heart, and making sure that obviously there's recurring businesses for yourselves.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that, Amaran, that market research is very important to us. Like, there's no reason to go all gung-ho into a market if you don't know what you're getting into, right? So understanding, like, knowledge is power. I always say this, and it's very true. And especially, doing something that's so close to our hearts, something that's dear to us, building a solution that can help businesses with liquidity, it's something that we all face as when we build our own businesses. And another personal analogy from us, talking about TruX, another reason why TruX was born was, as a software provider, a RoboCoder corporation, right? We had many different clients. We provided from the top, as I told you, the banks, insurance companies, etc. But we also provided solutions for SMEs. Now, at many times, the solutions we provided SMEs could range to six figures, right? The bill would end up to be $100,000. They would owe us, they have an owing to us. Now, one trend that we found was that a lot of these SMEs didn't pay us back. And I'm alluding to the use case I was telling you guys earlier, that, these small companies, these SMEs can't get loans. So they'd rather just not pay us back and treat our 100K debts as a loan for them to then expand their business and do other things. But from our side, as a vendor, we're not equipped to be a lender. We don't understand this business, right? Initially, at least. We came into it by building a service, by building something that people wanted to have, which was our software. We're very good at that, but being a lender was not in the books for us at the time. So we're very confused. Are they even okay to owe us $100,000? Do they even have the credit limit of that? Would anybody else owe them $100,000? Very important, right?
Yeah.
How much interest rate should I charge, right? If there is a default, how do I chase them for the money now that it's a loan? So many questions that we had, we just weren't equipped to be lenders.
Mhm.
Now, over time, after lots of negotiation, they started paying us back interest at 1% a month, ended up being 12% a year. And we had other paying clients. So we were like, fine, this is okay. We can sustain this. As long as they keep paying us interest, we'll be happy. But at the back of our mind, we still didn't have the trust that was needed because they were just a 2-year company with us in terms of as our clients, right? So it wasn't until 5 years later that we saw a press release that they recently secured a very large transfer funding from our local finance institutions for close to around $500,000. And we're like, if they could get $500,000 from this reputable company,
Yeah.
then the $100K they owe us is nothing, right? I'm fine with them owing us $100K because we know that they have the potential to get $500K elsewhere. There's a trust that's been established that we know someone else has lent them that money.
Mhm.
But the funny thing is, even with that cash injection, they still didn't pay us back, right? So for us, we still had no idea when we were going to get paid back. So we're still missing the second part, which was the credit tokens, right? That we're planning to implement with TruX. So we saw a very huge need for a solution like TruX, especially even within ourselves, within our industry, where we saw a direct need from one of our own clients that was struggling to pay us back, that amount of money. And when they do get more cash, because they saw that we were able to sustain, the cash flow loss on our end, they'd rather not pay us back first and build their business instead. Which is again okay if we knew that they were using that money to build their business and not spending it on a sports car or a new house for the owner. I'm okay with that. So it's all about perspective, and that's what we're trying to approach with today with TruX. So for the next kind of 30 minutes to 45 minutes, we want to kind of tackle the questions that's been asked to us on social medias. And thank you so much to our community managers, our community advisors, actually. They do this on a volunteer basis. They are just supporters just like you guys, just like everybody. And we're very, very happy that we've inspired such commitment and support for our project. And a warm thank you to you guys again for helping us curate all the questions and get this all together. So let me start off with some of the questions, and we'll dive into some of the deeper inquiries that we have.
Definitely.
So maybe Amaran, you can go ahead.
Okay. So one of the questions that was asked was from a 3D accumulator. I'm interested to know more about the IOU financing market for SME on a global scale. Is there more general data about this market, and also how platforms like FTX are going to disrupt this market? Well, TruX aims to disrupt the market by offering a solution that breaks all barriers, protects the users, and provides the ultimate sort of protection for businesses, and obviously working within provides the goals of the distributed economy. The IOU financing, or reputation-based finance is what we say, is FintruX is the novel. It's providing that innovative solution in the next big thing that Conrad was mentioning in the way we're lending.
Yeah, and to kind of elaborate on that point, I want to answer the question in two ways. The first way is that the market we're targeting, which is the small business sector, SMEs, startups even, it's a widely untapped market. Historically, they've been the most underserved market in the world, right? Nobody wants to deal with them. So one good thing about our platform, and this kind of even, answers Simon's question on the chat. Thank you, Simon, for joining us. Is what about startups? What about companies that have no financial history, right? The ones that the banks truly cannot service, and the ones that P2P lenders just guess at. Well, that's where we excel, because I want to put an analogy to this. Is let's say you turn 18, right? What's the first thing you do? You go to your nearest bank and you get a credit card, right? And the credit card, you start off at $500 or $1,000 credit limit, And you start to prove your credit worthiness by paying that revolving credit over time.
Yeah.
And after 10, 20 years, maybe you go and get a mortgage. And
Yeah.
they use that basis of, hey, you've had a credit card for 10 years and you've been paying it off every year or every month. I can give you a mortgage now because I know you'll pay it back.
Mhm.
So in the same vein, we have no rejection rate for TruX. Keep that in mind. We are the only financing platform with no rejection rate, because even for companies that come in with no credit history, we can start them off with a nominal level of credit, because again, it's just how much that they can pay back. And if they send it out to their vendors, the vendors send it back to them and they can pay up in cash. Over time, we can start building a lot of cumulative data that will help us be even better in credit adjudication and pick up on the indicators that nobody else has been able to pick up on before.
Mm-hmm. And it's good as well because, as Conrad was mentioning, like, when you're young, get that first credit card. And from a bank's perspective, I'll put it from a bank's perspective. So banks will sort of say, okay, well, you're only 18 years old. You got pretty much no savings in your account. You only got a minimal amount of savings. We're going to give you the lowest amount of credit, sort of thing. So, and obviously from there, it actually builds that behavior of repayments. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is obviously building that repayments behavior with your vendors and building that trust.
And it's at a very fast scale, because if you look at traditional unsecured financing, maybe it's a 12-month term. And if you need to wait 12 months every time to establish a credit, you're never going to build up good credit. It's just impossible for you. But the way we're doing it is because the cash flow is within 30 days. That means that every 30 days, the borrower has a chance to prove their credit once more, right, and build upon it. So we're providing a way for startups to easily get credit on our platform and to be able to establish global credit, which means that eventually, with our partners, banks and other financial institutions can actually access this information and start providing fiat loans because of us. So we're trying to provide an ecosystem where we're trying to broaden the pie, right? We're trying to make the pie bigger. We're not looking to take away, business from the banks. And to be honest, we don't want their business, right? We don't want the ones that they're focusing on, which is, millions of dollars and up of loans. We want to focus on the small sector, the SME sector that has not been getting funding, and be able to help them in more ways than just on our platform, right? Help them get the credit they need, help them get the trust they need, and then also link them with the reputable services that they need to build a better business, and so on and so forth. So it's quite a vision that we're going for. And one thing that I'm thankful for every day is having such a strong team behind me, in terms of development, in terms of business development, in terms of, community, in terms of, marketing. Everything is in place for us to do a very successful rollout and successful launch of this system. So I noticed that Simon also had a question for us, about, what we have planned, in the next couple of months as well. So in March, and we're very excited, we're doing our first 50 SME onboarding to help them get credit up to $50,000 Singaporean dollars in Singapore. And we're currently working on onboarding them now. We've been very busy going a little incognito to events for the last while. And for the last week, we've been starting to really publicize our presence and saying, hey, this is who we are. We're FintruX, and this is how we can help you. Mm-hmm. So we're looking for 50 forward-thinking entrepreneurs in Singapore that have a need for financing. They need more cash to build their business. They need to pay up back their vendors, whatever they need. We're happy to help you up to 50,000 Singaporean dollars. And that's starting in the month of March. And we're doing a joint venture, hopefully to be enrolled with the MAS Singaporean Fintech Sandbox, to explore more applications of our products, especially in the consumer side of things, which we have a lot of ideas for. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we can share some of it later. But obviously, a lot of it is still in discussion. But that's going to be in May. So we're going to look to do 100 loans up to $100,000 Sing, 100 SMEs onboarded for financing, business financing. And then in June is when we want to go live. We're planning to do a global launch, and from there, the sky's the limit. Mm-hmm. So let's go to another question that was asked on Telegram. And so Crypto Poker was asking, when is the FintruX platform going to be fully launching? And is the launching going to be accompanied with app releasing? So we kind of just answered that. The FintruX platform is scheduled to launch in Q2. I'm scheduling a month of June 2019. We're currently having closed beta of the platform, and for the app release, we're actually working with a web app right now, and it's going to be very interesting because it's going to be across all platforms. Anybody can access it. It's going to be as automated as possible. Very different from what other lenders may be doing at this space.
Yes, exactly. And also to touch upon that, I've also had the privilege of just trialing out with the demo as well. And it's so great to see the way FintruX network in general, and obviously with Robocode, and how agile we're working. And being agile is quite an important thing. And I guess it's a word that it's kind of thrown around within the FinTech Association, because some companies aren't able to perfect it. But even with the development of the platforms that we've done, and now that Conrad showed me, like even the user experience of it is absolutely seamless. Like, it's quite user efficient. Anybody can be able to use it. And I do obviously commend Conrad because I still can't imagine how he still wakes up at 2:00 in the morning for meetings with the Canadian team. But it's amazing to see, as he was touching upon, the whole team backing the one vision and the one team, one dream kind of motto that we've currently got, and obviously supporting each other where we can. As he was mentioning, he obviously said that we attended a few association networking sessions, and it was so great to actually meet SME businesses and actually speak to them on a personal level as well, to understand their situation, because there's a lot of fear in the markets, no matter which industries look into, that's sort of saying, okay, we're going on to blockchain, we're going into cryptocurrencies, but we're still old school in doing fiat currencies, and how are we going to evolve? And that's when it's interesting when we have those conversations with them. It's great to sort of say, we understand your situation, we understand your fear, but however, we're able to guide you through that journey. So what we plan to do as well, even like when we go see customers and for signups, is give them the A to Z of the customer journey, being able to go with them throughout the whole entire thing, not just onboard them and go, okay, thank you so much, see you later. It's about following them up and sort of seeing how they're going and progressing through as they go through as well. So we've also developed our information packs as well for borrowers and lenders, to give that information to them and that support that you need.
Yeah, thank you, Amaran, for elaborating. And this kind of touches a very interesting topic that I want to go into it for a little bit, because it's very dear to me. One thing is blockchain adoption. What is it really, right? And to me, blockchain adoption doesn't mean that everybody, every auntie and uncle has to know about how to set up a crypto wallet.
Yeah,
that's not something that I think is the adoption we're looking for, and not the adoption that people need. Like, think of it like TCP, right? It's what builds the internet. But do any of us know how it works? Not really. I mean, I know I can go to google.com and I can search whatever I want, and that's the extent that I need to know, because that's my use case, right? Same thing with FintruX. One thing that many blockchain companies have already proven to fail at is the user experience.
Yeah.
How do you onboard traditional companies to use your services that are based on the blockchain, and you expect them to use MetaMask or MyEtherWallet or Hardware Ledger Nano Wallet? It's quite impossible. So what we are doing is we're making sure that the benefits of the blockchain is inherent within our platform, that our users are benefiting from it. But there is no need whatsoever for them to understand exactly the details of it, other than the benefits are there to protect you. So that's our pitch going in. And at the end of the day, the more we liaison and discuss with these kind of borrower potentials, the more we understand more about their problems and their needs, and the more we're able to service them in the way that they want to be serviced. And at the end of the day, we're just providing a service for them.
Yeah.
So we had a few questions about the roadmap from RBTTI30 and JB Jafhoint,
yeah.
I think. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. I'm very sorry about that. And essentially asking about an updated roadmap. Currently, the one ends at Q2 2019, and also about how are we delivering on the roadmap. So I'll kind of answer them the same question. So I personally am not of the opinion of counting my chickens before they hatch, right? I want to see how the launch goes. I'm very eager and very keen and obviously very optimistic about the launch.
Yep.
We've done already a lot of due diligence and we're excited about the uptake and the interest in the Asian communities. However, in terms of future expansion, we don't want to be too descriptive about it yet because it may change, right? Things happen. That's why we're an agile company. That's why we try to look forward and be forward thinking. Now, as we reach closer to the launch, we'll have a lot of understanding about what can be done and what can't be done, especially in the regulatory scheme. We're really excited to be pushing out a consumer version of TruX, where everyday people can interact with it, where it can be an e-payment services, where people can spend the credit tokens everywhere, right? Especially in Asia, where cashless societies is so prevalent, we think this is a true reality that can be launched very, very soon. And we have the technology already out there. So we want to give you more updates on that, but probably later on near Q2 when the launch is closer and we have verified success that we can prove to you guys everything works and we love it.
Of course.
In regards to have all the milestones been delivered, of course, yes, we have. That's why we're talking to you today. We always release information on that in terms of, every 2 weeks we have a bi-weekly Tuesday Team Talks blog that comes out. And also we try to have a recap every month. So if there's any specific questions about the roadmap, I can definitely answer that as well as you guys have them. I always try to pop into the chat once in a while as well. And in regards to, someone asked, who are the competitors of FTX and is there a comparison available? So maybe Amaran, you can take that away.
So in regards to, sorry, can you just go back to that? Sorry, Conrad, you got that question again.
Oh, sure, yeah. There's a lot of questions.
There is a lot of questions.
Yeah, right here.
Which one over there? Yeah. Okay. So we obviously are a monopolistic organization. So we have no actual direct competitors that we know of at the moment. And so that's the reason why we are able to even differentiate ourselves to a traditional P2P lending company. So what we have actually done, we've actually done a competitor analysis on where we are positioned ourselves in the market against the financial institutions and true P2P lending companies and what we are doing differently. And I'm happy to go through that and list that because obviously, as I said, because it's such a great platform that we are separate to a P2P or a financial institution. Like, for example, our credit adjudications, we're backed by artificial intelligence through to also the loan repayments and so forth that enables yourself to do the negotiations with your vendors itself. Whereas other companies, other businesses take control of that. They are the ones who set the interest. They are the ones that actually do the credit adjudication, say, okay, this is exactly what's happening in your space. And we're able to provide those scores through artificial intelligence. The loan generator, now, as we were mentioning, we're not dealing with any fiat currencies. We're not even lending our own sort of money, but it's merely turning the existing creditors into lenders. Whereas obviously you got your financial institutions where the institution lends the money. With the P2P lending companies, they're dealing with fiat currencies and so forth. The interest rate. Now, the borrower decides on the interest rate, as we sort of explained before. Whereas financial institution, interest rates are actually determined by the institution itself. Your P2P funding societies, funding companies, fixed interest rates are actually provided. So it has no room for you to negotiate. Technology, how we're different, again, we're blockchain and AI, whereas your financial institutions and P2Ps are all purely IT based. Again, we're an agile tech company, so we can adopt things on the fly. We can actually update things as we go. And as Conrad was mentioning, the more we actually engage with our customers coming on board, we can understand their pain points. And it is up to us to obviously be able to address that. So we can obviously look at tailoring products and services, just obviously within not only including the try that and how can we improve it on a continuous basis.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into discussion about different products as well. As I mentioned before, FintruX network is primed to be the financial trust network. We want to help any company in the small, medium to large range help navigate the whole channel of getting through that journey, right?
Mhm.
And it doesn't just end at financing. We have an accounting platform ready to go. We have a knowledge base that we want to establish that's going to help more educate the entrepreneurs on how to build a better business, how to manage cash flows, give them tools on cash flow balance sheet statements, et cetera, et cetera. The sky's the limit for us, and there's a lot of good we want to do, especially in this sector. So another question was, so someone was asking a lot of questions about from El Mimio Fantastico. Fantastic name, love it. So first question was, will FintruX provide the option to provide loans fractionally? Like one person loans 10K, loans 500, and four people take a loan to provide 2K each. So actually, this is one of the key things that we wanted to tackle that the fiat model wouldn't be able to do, right? But now that the borrower is actually in control of their own credit, let's say, again, in this case, they got $50,000 credit, they can proportionalize that however they want. They can send 10K here to vendor A, send 10K to vendor B, send 1K to vendor C, however they want to do it, whoever they owe money to. So this makes it very fractional, very marginal. Will FintruX facilitate a secondary market for ongoing loans? Yes. The whole idea of securitization is that you're able to sell a tranche of loans of the same class out to another provider who's buying it at a discounted rate, but then you get the cash up front to then invest in other things. So what we are going to do, especially, but this also obviously touches security laws, and we have to work together with the MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, to do this. But because of our immense securitization experience, we do want to provide a secondary market and be able to essentially create liquidity where there was none previously. And this kind of also ties into the consumer model, which, again, I'd love to share more details about later on. How is paying back loans enforced? And this actually goes with Arun's question too, where fundamentally what prevents the borrower from defaulting since there's no collateral, he or she has nothing to lose? Well, I want to tackle this in a few ways, right? The first one is understanding the concept of unsecured lending. So unsecured lending is essentially, as you say, no collateral, right? And the whole idea of trying to revolutionize the way we do unsecured lending is so that even though there's no collateral, there is still safety behind the closed doors, right? There's reputation backing this. And on our side, there's also credit enhancements. And this is something I haven't mentioned in the AMA before, but if you look through our business materials, we do have a lot of information about this. But let me expand into a bit of detail, right? So I mentioned that credit enhancements are prevalent in securitization in making sure that big tranches of loans are safer, right? Even if there's a default in one of them, something else will cover it. So what we do is we establish 4 levels of security for the lender if there is a default. The first one is over collateralization, which means that when the borrower comes on board, they have the option to say, hey, I've adjudicated that the borrower is 5%, is low risk lending, then they have to provide. They have the option to provide 5% of the credit limit that they provided into a credit risk pool, which is their own undertaking, right? And then the lender can see this and they're more satisfied that, hey, there is a pool, there is at least 5% of the amount that can be recovered because that's the amount they put up as collateral in terms of over collateralization. But obviously this is not enough. 5% is not enough. Even if you go to high risk lending, 10%, it's nothing, right? If they defaulted the whole thing. But that's where the second layer comes about, which is the cross-collateralization. Now, all the loans of the same class and industry are able to be grouped together and be able to essentially help cross-collateralize and make whole lenders of within the same class whose loans have defaulted. So this creates kind of like an insurance risk pool that in our case can be extended to be a global application and essentially cross borders so that our pool just gets stronger and stronger as time goes on. The third level is actually personal guarantee of the owners. We make sure that the owners are personally liable for any debts they incur on our platform, which is something, again, that the vendors wouldn't normally be able to do if they engage into a traditional kind of, hey, you just pay me back, my invoice isn't paid up, I'm going to sue you, but I can't take your personal assets. And the last thing is we have our own reserve pool of 5% of our crowd sale, which we will use to as a final layer to facilitate any losses. But we don't foresee that many, especially because there is the option, there's the reputation backing everything up, and also at the end of the day, the personal guarantee of the owner, which they can pay back into the pool and recover funds. So let's see. And then questions about will interest rates per loan differ? Yes, definitely, because the borrowers are choosing the interest rates themselves. It's power back to the borrowers, which is unprecedented. Vagabond 777. How many SMEs have you onboarded so far to this date for the initial testing of TruX? So we are in the process of actively onboarding select SMEs, and we want to release performance updates by the end of March on exactly how many SMEs were onboarded, how much credit did they take, how much interest rates did they charge their vendors. All this information we want to reveal later on once we've established ourselves. As I mentioned, the target is 50 SMEs, and I think we're well on track to achieving that by March. Also, another question. In your view, what consists a successful trial for the Singaporean market and how long will it last? My view, I've already planned out my timeline. March, 50 loans of $50,000 each. May, 100 SMEs coming in for $100,000 of financing, and then June is our global launch. So from that, you can see it's kind of 2 to 3 months of testing per model. And the one in May, to be clear, is going to be with extended features with consumers, et cetera, et cetera. Briefly explain what a regulatory sandbox is and why is it extremely beneficial to FintruX to be accepted into the Singapore MAS Fintech Sandbox. Wow. Without going too much into semantics, the Fintech Sandbox essentially enables us to operate without a license for a given amount of time, usually around 18 months. And why this is important is because if we're doing a traditional business that the rules are already well defined, then I know exactly what license I need and we'll get them, right? Initially, we thought we needed the CMS license, which is the Capital Market Service license, right? The right to deal in securities in Singapore. But as we read deeper and deeper into the fine prints, we noticed that what we want to do with TruX, and not the fiat lending, mind you, right, actually doesn't directly supersede any of their laws, which is why we're able to do the March beta testing without being in the MAS sandbox to start. It's only the main one where we want to extend to consumers, we want to do payments. That's when we want to go into sandbox that says, hey, we want to try all these things out. There's a whole host of services we want to try. We're not sure if this is going to, infringe on any licensing requirements that you guys may have. We suspect there might be, and you guys suspect there might be, but maybe at the end of the day, we decide that there isn't, and we can just operate without the need for a license. But the main thing is that they don't have any licenses to govern us right now in terms of the consumer model, and also for more extended features, credit advice, et cetera. So it'd be very beneficial for us to be enrolled in their sandbox. So we have free reign to do whatever we need to do to test our model and make sure it works without having to go through the whole legal expenditures and the whole expensive process of retaining many lawyers full-time to get us our license. Let's see. What would the lending process look like from our BTTI 30? I've mentioned that as well in the current flow. How do current FTX holders get involved? Now, this actually runs into one of the questions from Michael that was asking about a lot of focus on the, FRX token since the last use updates, but are we going to get a rundown on use cases for the FTX token specifically anytime soon? Now, this is a very touchy question because we have a lot of ideas of how the FTX token can play a role, and a general outline is found on fintrux.com/token. However, the true application of these cannot be fully instated until we go through the MAS Sandbox and are able to investigate these potentially infringing on securities benefits that we wish to provide to FTX holders um, in a regulatory-free model. As I've said, the Sandbox will provide us the leeway to do so. Now, from the main high-level view, though, we fully expect the FTX token to be a vital economic driver inside the FintruX platform for every product that we push, not just TruX, right? For future fiat integrations, for future consumer integrations, everything will be touching FTX as a back layer, because at the end of the day, this token is for us to access the platform and to use the platform to its fullest. Michael Ashton asked that question, potentially making a security. We want to maintain the utility status of the token 100%. But as we found with a lot of other token issuers is that they actually have a lot of gray area use cases. Like Salt is a fantastic example, right? They initially in the crowd, so they posted a million use cases of it, and how it's going to be amazing. But at the end of the day, the U.S. SEC said no, cannot be done, right? So we want to avoid that. We want to make sure that the benefits we're proposing involving staking mechanisms, involving reputation, involving whatever, how have you, holding mechanisms to essentially be still within compliancy and maintaining our utility status. Because once you extend the security status, you have to reissue a new token. You have to do a lot of things. It's not worth the time and effort invested, but the benefits must still be there. So let's see what other questions that we can answer. Let's see. Thank you, Michael, for asking that good question. I appreciate that. There's a lot of questions here.
There's a lot of questions.
Some of them I answered on the chat. Maybe we can talk about expansion plans.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting.
Sure.
Here you go.
So this question was actually asked by. Oh, sorry, I think I went too far.
Yeah, you went too far.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So the question was posed like, assuming Singapore is the first market to be targeted, what other countries will be next on the list for that initial phase of growth and marketing? And that is a brilliant question to ask, because obviously what we're doing is, as we mentioned before, is like going globally. So we're looking into different what markets we can tap into. And if, for example, you would look into, why are traditional P2P lending companies focusing a lot in Indonesia? If you actually look up some stats as well, there's a lot of companies based out of there. And that's purely because of the fact that there was only 20% of Indonesian adults who are actually able to get bank accounts, and it's quite restricted for people to get lending and so forth. Hence the reason why a lot of P2P companies have actually branched out into Indonesia and actually started running those areas. What we have planned to do in the next few in our projections is to look at countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Taiwan, and Australia, because there are a lot of needs for our services and how we can actually revolutionize the way lending is going to be. And because one of the good things about it, I'm just going to touch upon something a bit different here, Conrad.
Sure.
We're registered to be attending the Money 2020 Asia event held in March. That's from the 19th to the 21st. So that is just like, one of the platforms. And I remember when I was sort of walked past the FintruX network booth last year at the Singapore Fintech Association, it was great to see the amount of people coming towards and asking questions. That itself actually helps with a lot of the side of the growth. And when we go into July, we're looking at presenting at Rise in Hong Kong. So that's be another big sort of step for us as well, to sort of prove that we are looking at definitely going to global, in line with what Conrad was mentioning before, expanding out by June, July, and so forth.
And actually, interesting that you mentioned Rise. If you guys remember correctly, last year we actually won top 3 startups at Rise, and for our fiat model, but the basis of the implication or the basis of the model was all still there. But
Yeah.
definitely we're getting a lot of recognition. We look really forward to implementing everything and showing solid statistics on the adoption in Singapore and then expanding. After Indonesia, like we want to go to Malaysia, Vietnam, Taiwan, even Australia, where our residents, Amaran is from. But there's a lot of potential for our model, and I wanted to spend this time to kind of talk a bit about two applications of the B2C kind of roadmap for us. And obviously, don't hold me to this one. It's all, however much we can get done with the MAS, working together with us and making sure that it's all legal and working well for everybody involved, which we think will. But I just want to make sure that everything is not set in stone yet. And this is just some ideas that we have that are currently in testing.
Testing, yeah.
Correct. So one of the interesting things is that, as an employee, right, you normally get salary. And an average person usually takes around 25 to 30% of that and puts it into savings. They save it towards the future. And currently in most first world countries, developed countries, they put it into a bank account, which will be paying 1% or less, even 0.1% interest a month. And that's not really giving you much savings, right? That's the reason why people go towards, other investment mechanisms, GICs, mutual funds, stock market, all pretty risky forms of investments that, are not really, they're not close to. They're not. It's not causes that they're close to. So one of the proposals we have is that, let's say you work for a cash-strapped company, right? And they've onboarded onto FintruX, and they are looking, and they've been issued their first round of FRX, their credit that represents their borrowing power, right? And they say, hey, I want to give you the amount of salary that you would normally save in our credit token instead, and let's negotiate on an interest rate. And so on your end, let's say they negotiate, 0.8 or even let's say 1% interest a month. Compounded annually, that's 12%. You just got a 12% raise on 25% of your salary. And on top of that, you're investing into a vision that you believe in. If you work at that company, you should believe in what they're doing. You should be a part of it, right? That's the reason why stock options are so attractive to so many people, is that they feel like they're a part of the company. They feel like they're building towards something bigger. And when they make that company bigger, right, then they also earn in return. So in this way, we're providing a way for the lenders into the company, the small business, to actually be employees of the company. And that's a whole new way of thinking about it, right? That's a much better interest rate that you're going to earn from the bank. And you have an option to cash out within 30 days from your own company. And who else would you trust other than them? Yeah. And on top of that, we're currently building partnerships with a lot of retail and F&B businesses in Singapore, and also expanding, where they may potentially be the first ones to utilize our TruX service. Now, if they are the ones even issuing the FRX, what's to stop them from receiving FRX as payments for services that they render, whether it be, in the food and beverage, they're selling, in restaurants, whether it be in retail businesses. It's very likely that we can instantly jump to a world where our method of payments is just as inclusive, right, as WeChat Pay or Alipay. And we're so excited about that. This makes the previously illiquid credit tokens that could only be cashable from the borrower to actually be cashable anywhere, right? And we have many, many, many other integration ideas about this. We think really the sky is the limit. There is really nothing that we can't envision that can impact positively every aspect of entrepreneurial life, as well as everyday people lives, because as you build a better business, you're able to hire more people, able to touch more lives, able to grow a better business and impact the GDP, and so on and so forth. So what we're building here is more than just a singular solution. It's a lifestyle. We want to be the guardian angels of SMEs everywhere. Another question. Let's see. Any other questions coming in from the current viewers? I'd love to answer a few more if you have anything like that. I just want to see. There's a few questions that have already been answered already. Any sneak peeks on the next update? Well, so what we're planning to do, and this is obviously with support from the community, we'd love to continue having these kind of AMA discussions with everybody, and hopefully, to keep building more and more supporters every time. It really helps to put a face and a personality to the projects that you're supporting, and we understand that very much. And we also believe in you guys a lot. Thank you guys for supporting us. So every month, I plan to introduce a new team member, or we only have so many, but but like introduce more aspects of our operation, right? Next month, we want to introduce our community relations manager. That's going to be helping us set up community ambassadors for us that are going to be helping us push our solution out to the public. We also have a lot of exciting ideas about that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're providing a solution that helps everybody. We're not looking to take a big cut of it. We're taking a sustainable cut, and we're building a profitable business for ourselves that's helping the underserved. So in this case, community ambassadors actually have a very solid and how do you say it? Like a
strong presence,
a strong cause too,
Yeah.
right? That allows them to go approach business owners and let them know about the solution that's there for them that no one can offer them, right? Who can say no rejection rate? I honestly can't count anywhere that says that.
Exactly.
And it becomes a situation where we really think that adoption of our product comes with a really strong community. We want to build this from the grassroots up. We want this to be a very organic thing. And at the end of the day, it comes from the power of the people to build and push a product that the people want.
And I think as well, just to add on that, as well as Conrad was mentioning, each month he's going to be introducing new team members. Just obviously from an operational perspective as well, it's really good because what we're trying to do is not just purely just hire anybody and everybody in order to fill seats. It's more about strategically looking at how we are going in our business structure. Exactly what are we doing? Exactly what skills and qualities and capabilities we can actually incorporate from individuals into our business. And Conrad and myself and everybody else in the company that's currently recruiting, we're actually making sure we're recruiting as much as what we actually need rather than just going, we want to get everybody on board. But it's about what skills and attributes can everybody else utilize. We all wear different hats at the moment, and it's been fun. It's such a great exciting journey. So project management and this one, and with community relations as well, it's a big one that we're sort of looking into, because it's about getting ambassadors on board, such as obviously yourselves as well, on the telegrams and obviously through the AMAs and supporters. You guys are yourselves are ambassadors for us, and supporting us, and we gratefully thank you for that. And continuously getting that brand awareness about us, and we definitely want to take you guys along that journey. And come, if you happen to be in Singapore by any chance, by all means let us know, and we're happy to catch up for a coffee, or just be great to obviously see you guys in face to face as well.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about the whole making sure that the right people make up the team. Honestly speaking, transparency speaking, and that's always my policy. I'm very transparent, as Amaran. But I've went through 50 different interviews before I landed on you.
Oh, wow, really?
50 different interviews.
Wow. 50, wow.
Thank you. I think that's my average for most of the people that join us, because it's really important to me that, there's the right skill sets, but more important than that is the attitude, right? Having the attitude and the drive is something that you can never replace. Aptitude, skills you can teach, but attitude, the drive to do more than what you're asked for, the drive to accomplish more, the drive to do better, the drive to be part of something bigger, is unparalleled. And it's something that I saw in Amaran, which is why I'm lucky to have him beside me today.
Thank you very much, Conrad.
Definitely
My pressure load just gone heavy now. So there's a lot of pressure after he told me to interview 50 other candidates before me. So, but it's great. Like, the culture that we actually have, it's such a knowledge-based learning culture where we're from different sort of backgrounds and experiences, and like what we're actually bringing to the table. And like, even like I met a few people from the Canadian office, like, just through Skype Business and so forth. And like, it's amazing to gel with them and connect with them. And obviously we all got the same person, like the behavior, and obviously wanting to see the culture to foster that growth. And we obviously, that's one of the biggest things I think from my experience is, for any business to succeed, it's about your people and culture. Ultimately, that's the end goal, because if you don't have the right people and culture for your business, then your business is obviously, it's going to head towards turmoil. So it's about like harnessing that, and obviously caring for that as well. And with FintruX and robocoders and so forth, like we're able to cater for that sort of thing. So, and that's what makes us not only stand out within the market, but it also makes us stand out as being employers as well, compared to other sort of employers within different industries.
Yeah, so a brief sum of what's going to happen next month is a large focus on community, a very large focus. We plan to release our new forum sites on our website that's going to allow more people to have more conducive discussions about entrepreneurship in general, financing, how to get it, how does our platform differ, how can they get onboard on our platform. We plan to ramp up our support staff. We plan to ramp up our knowledge base, right? Building up a true, essentially dictionary A to Z and how to be entrepreneur and how to utilize our platforms and etc. And starting up really ramping up our community ambassador program. We currently are formally training some ambassadors in Singapore and see how well they do in the beta test. And then, it's like for us, the beta test coming up in March, it's not just to test the software, not just to test the process, not just to test our business development efforts, right? Not just to test the market, but also to test our marketing. Everything is there. Like, we want to make sure all our facets are covered so that when we get on to the end of the, end of all the beta testing and come June, we want to push out a good product. Yeah. All right. Well, I think, that's right about it. Look forward for a upcoming blog that's going to summarize kind of our discussion. Our wonderful marketing team is going to get on that pretty soon. As well as we'll continue releasing Tuesday Team Talks on our blog at blog.fintrux.com. Please do take a look. And if you do have anybody you think would be interested in participating in our Singaporean pilot, or even if they're from other countries, let us know so that we can adequately prepare for their onboarding when we are ready for them. You can send us an email at partnerships@fintrux.com or just even send us a message through Telegram. We're always happy to be here and help, and we're always looking for more ways we can help entrepreneurs in this space. All right. Well, thank you so much. If there's no further questions, I think we'll kind of run through it, and hope that you guys have a fantastic day. It's wonderful here in Singapore, and we'll continue working and making sure we deliver a fantastic product.
Definitely. And once again, guys, thank you so much for being patient with myself. As I was mentioning, my first ever AMA.
You did fantastic.
I've never done a YouTube thing before in my life, so this is my first time. But look, as Conrad was saying, we love your support. Continue that support, and pump through the questions, any queries. We want to give you the A to Z of our journey as well, not only our customers. So we're there for you as much as you are there for us as well. So continue on, keep sending that love.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you all.